Octavia Bradley. I'm originally from New York, and I reside in Newark, New Jersey. I am a woman of God. I'm a wife. I am a mother of 5 children. I am a certified life coach. I am a therapist guru. I am an adjunct professor at several colleges here in New Jersey. And I am an entrepreneur for Reveal to Heal Consulting Services, LLC, and Reveal to Heal Consulting Services, nonprofit. I don't mind sharing a little bit about my childhood before those titles became about. I was born into a large family, including aunts, uncles, cousins, grandmother. My mom had one child up until the age I was 10, and then she gave birth to my sister. But the journey until the age I was 10 was a bit rough. My mom, she was one of the biggest drug dealers in the city of New York, Bronx, New York, to be specific. And everyone feared her. She was this ruthless person in the sense of selling drugs, crack cocaine, dust, and she was born into a family of 9 siblings. And with my mom took care of everyone, and my grandmother took care of all the children. So there were about 6 of us in the household with my grandmother, who was a very strong woman. And as my mom continued to run the streets and we continued to live with my grandmother, by the time I turned 5, I was molested by a cousin. It was oddly enough because my mom was this feared person in the streets. And it was like, how dare you touch her daughter of the streets? And so in our household, we kind of grew up with that statement, what happens in this house stays in this house. And so what that meant was you're not supposed to say anything that went on in the household, not even to each other. And so when this molestation was happening, it was no one that I can tell. It was just that I had to take it. I had to deal with it. And the way that I dealt with it was acting out with my doll babies, fighting my doll babies, breaking their legs, being angry with them, drawing on their faces. And I remember that same cousin used to always eat half a chicken and fried rice and with hot sauce. And I can't stand that until today. Like, it's just smell of it. It just really triggers me really bad. And I remember one time coming home, my mom, she must have got beat up by some people in the street. And I remember walking into the bedroom and I saw her face. It was like swollen, bloody. My mom is real light. And like you couldn't see her lightness. Everything was dark. And her girlfriend at the time, my mom is gay, and her girlfriend at the time, like she was trying to rush me out the room, like, go sit down. And my mother told her no, to have me come and to sit with her while her face was in this horrific state. And I remember her saying to me, don't trust anybody. Like you have to care for yourself. You have to watch out for yourself, because even your closest people, your friends, will turn their back on you and they will get you. And at that time, I didn't know what she was talking about. I'm just like, okay, your friends did this to you? And then she told me, just go inside the room. And I remember between the ages of 7 or 8, like things were different. Things started becoming different for her. She was never home, but she started looking weird. She started acting funny. And that's when I realized that she started getting high off of crack. Like she was smoking crack. The smell in the house was different. And it was this like stale smell. And she would always be in the room. And then when she would come out, she would move quick. She would shake. She would be nervous. And I remember one time we were living inside the projects and she was still getting high. And these guys came into our home, these white guys. They came into our home, it was like 3 of them. Like they knocked on the door really hard. And, my mom ran to the door and she had nothing but a shirt on just to cover her bottom. And when she opened the door, it's like they just bust into the door. And when they bust into the door, I was holding my baby sister at the time. And she was crying, and they were saying some things to my mother, and then all I heard her saying was like, I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna get your money, I'm gonna get your money. And my sister kept crying, And one of the guys turned to my sister and said, like, you better shut that baby up. And I was trying to shut her up, and my mother was telling me to go sit down. And then the guy pulled out a gun on my mom. The other guy pulled out a gun on us. And he told my mom, he was like, I should blow your head off right now. And I remember jumping in front of my mother, and I told him, I said, if you touch her, I'm going to kill you. And then they looked at each other, and my mother was telling me to be quiet. And I was like, no, they're not going to hurt you. And then the guy said, you better be lucky your kids is here. Your daughter has more heart than you. But if you don't have my money within a week, you're going out the window. And at that time, he lived on the 19th floor. And they left. And one of the guys turned back and he said, you're going to be somebody great one day, to me. And I took my sister, I sat on the bed, and my mother closed the door, and she was mad, like, why, I told you to be quiet. I told you, you'd be seen and not heard. And she was upset with me. And then she left. And we didn't see her again for days. She left us in the house, and I ended up taking my sister, getting her dressed. The next day, we didn't have a phone to call. Cell phones wasn't out like that. And I remember taking my sister from one part of the Bronx all the way across town to the other part of the Bronx on a train. And I was like 9, maybe 9 or 10. And taking her across town and getting to my grandmother's house. And when I got to my grandmother's house, my grandmother said, what are you doing with that baby? Where's your mother? I was like, I don't know. She left us in the house. And then my grandmother took the baby, and I said, you keep an eye on her, because I'm going to go outside and play. And those were some of the rough parts of my childhood. I stayed with grandma, not really stayed with her. I want to say maybe a few months into all of us just living there. My mother, eventually she came back, and she was mad at me for bringing my sister over again. Why am I talking about what happened in the house? And I didn't share. I just said that she left and she didn't come back. But obviously that was a bit too much. And I remember us being over with my grandmother, and then my mom ended up taking us with her, like she was just taking us out. And I remember my mom started dealing with the guy again. But come to find out, as I got older, it wasn't that she was really dealing with the guy, like to be with him. It was more like she was really prostituting herself with the guy. And I remember we drove in front of the Chinese restaurant, and they went to go get us food. And my mom and him got out. They went to the Chinese restaurant, and all I heard was my mom, cussing and yelling and fussing. And, she came out the store, and I saw her in that stance that she was standing in, knew she was about to get it on. And I remember crawling out of the car window with the bat that they had in the car. And I was now standing in the same stance, ready to fight whoever was trying to hurt my mom. And once that was diffused, my mom got back in the car and she beat me. And she said, I told you to stay in a child's place. I told you not to get out the car. And I said, but you said that, if we see anybody fighting our family, we have to jump in. This is what we have to do. And I still got beat, one for saying that, one for getting out the car. So it was so confusing. Like, what the hell do you do? Like, it was confusing. And so I remember I went outside to play one day, going back, so she returned us to my grandmother's house. And I went outside. We kept hearing, like the kids kept hearing, BCW is coming. Like they're coming, they're looking for you guys, they're coming. We didn't know what BCW was. And I went back in the house, and BCW took my little sister. They took my aunt's children that was there. And I asked my grandmother, I'm like, where's my sister? And she said, oh, those people came and took your sister, they're looking for you. Your mother better go down there, she better go do something. And my mother came back. My mother was saying, she was like, telling my grandmother, why did you let them take her? And my grandmother said, like, it's nothing I could have did. They came in, they took all the kids. And my mother was saying they wasn't even looking for her. They was looking for my aunt's children. And because my sister was in the house, they took all of the children. And so I told my mom, like, well, what you gonna do? Like, how are you gonna get them back? And my grandmother said, well, here's the number, you can call them. And I went to go call, but the phone wasn't working in the house. And then so my mother and I was on a run. And then I guess when she got tired of running, she just, she told me, she said, I remember, she said, I'm gonna let you go with them. They're gonna put you with your sister. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna get you. And she didn't come back. So she was, she was still in the streets. I went, they placed me with a family member who I didn't know. It was a great uncle who I didn't know. His family was a good family. They didn't eat meat or anything like that, and that was different for me. And so they placed me in this household with them, and then my other cousins was placed there too, so it was comfortable. But then when it was time to get my sister, I remember my aunt saying, "We're not going to be able to get your baby sister. You just tell them that, you know, you don't want to leave, you want to stay here." And I was thinking, oh, I want my sister. And so when the BCW worker came and, you know, they was asking how everything was, and I was like, no, I want to be placed with my sister. I don't like it here. I don't like how they do things here. This is not what I want to do. Eventually, they placed me out of that home and put me with another family member who I did not know. And they placed me in that foster home with her. And I want to say maybe it was like 8 months later, they placed me with my sister. She was willing to take both of us. So they placed us together. And with them placing us there, I remember the worker saying, he said, don't mess up this home, because if you have to be placed, you're not going to be placed with your sister, because no one wants anyone that's not a baby. So you're over 5, so you're not going to be placed. You're going to be placed in a group home and all these different things. And so I always held on to that. And in this home was abuse. In this home was verbal, mental, emotional. It was beatings, not only with the children, but even with the foster parent. Like her boyfriend at the time used to beat the hell out of her. He didn't like me. I was coming into a home disrupting their family. I remember when I first got to that home, I had a black eye. I was playing a game with my cousins, and I ended up getting hit in the eye with a stick. And I had a big black eye. And when I came, he wasn't there, but we were hanging out with the other kids that was in the household. And we went outside. We was playing in front of the house, and I was just standing there, just, you know, taking everything in. Once I was standing outside and, you know, just watching everything, it was a man standing on a stoop. And he was like, "Little girl, what happened to your eye?" And I was like, "Don't worry about what happened to my eye. Mind your business. Don't talk to me." I went back upstairs, and lo and behold, it was the boyfriend who I didn't know that was a boyfriend. It was him who came into the house, and when he came into the house, he didn't see me, but he was telling the foster parent, "Yeah, some little girl outside, she's gonna get smart with me, and she's just real fresh and grown." And the foster parent was like, "Who?" And I was like, "I don't know, I never seen her around here before." And when I came out the kitchen, he was like, "Her right there, what's she doing in this house? I don't want her in this house. She's gonna be a bad influence." And it was like, well, this is my younger cousin who we just took in. So apparently it wasn't something that was discussed with him. We didn't meet them. And so it has been like an emotional roller coaster since then. And, you know, just back and forth, and not ever fully having a relationship with him, wanting a relationship with him because he had a relationship with the other kids. He treated the other kids really good. And that they were his kids. They were her kids. And then years after us being there, he ended up having 2 kids with her who loved me to death. They thought I was the mom because I was taking care of the kids. You know, they would leave and I would take care of the kids. And so he hated the fact that his children loved me. And his youngest son looked just like me. And that was just the worst. That was just the worst thing ever. And I remember as we grew up, and the more he disliked me, the more the kids loved me, the more I had to do. And I remember just getting tired of him disrespecting me, him putting his hands on me. Like, I got tired. And one day he went to beat my foster parent, and he beat her. And then he came out because he would drink. So he had his own childhood traumas and his own abuse and things that he went through. And I remember him when he beat her and he came out the room. I was like, "You a coward." And he said, "Oh, I'm a coward?" I was like, "You a coward." And he went to go grab me, and him and we were fighting, and I had to be about 14, 15 years old. And him and I was fighting. I still got a scar that he put on me from that day. And I remember, like, my foster parent was saying, "Just go," telling me, just go lay down, just go lay down, just stop, just go lay down. She didn't take up for us. Go lay down. And so I remember I went to go lay down, probably was in the bed, maybe 10 minutes, and he came and threw a pot of water on me. At the age of 5, I was molested. And then being in this foster home, I was molested a lot by my foster parent's son. And like, he was just so sneaky and so cunning about it. He would do things like get on the bed after your sleep and just be behind you and just rubbing on you. And like he'll walk real close to you, and I would jump up fighting. Like it was that type of life now. Now I've always had to fight you. We never got along. Him molesting me, it was always me and him in the house. But if it was somebody that he was in trouble with in the street, it was always us against those in the street. And so I took the butt of the abuse in the house, not seeing, not knowing if he was doing anything to any of the other girls, which was my younger sister and then his younger sister. So I felt like I had to take the abuse, but I was also going to do something about it. And then I remember our foster parent, like she was real close to people in Brooklyn. She took us to Brooklyn. And the same thing happened. Molestation in Brooklyn happened. Molestation in Brooklyn happened by a boy. It happened by a girl. And so I began to think, like, this is what's supposed to happen. Like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be being touched, or this is just normal, because why does it keep happening if it's not normal? And then I remember when I was 16, dancing was my life. That was my entire life. You could not stop me. I didn't care. I was going to do it. You can do whatever you want to do, but I was going to go out and dance. And I remember being a part of a group, and just dancing, different block parties, battling people. And just even in school, I majored in dance. Everything was about dance for me. That was my escape. And I remember there was a man, the landlord's son, who was older. He was an adult. He always watched, and from what I thought at that age, admired the girls dancing and the little groups and the battles. He did block parties. We danced for block parties. And he was into music. And I remember him saying, I want you and your crew to be in my music video. So, now we hyped up. We all excited. I don't know if you guys know Omar Chandler, Joy, pump it up, pain. Listen, we was gonna be in this video. He was there, and when we saw him, we was like, oh, this is real. We gonna really be a part of this. And I was the one who choreographed the dances and things like that. And he said, he was like, I want you to come to the office. Let me see, what moves you're gonna be putting in this. And I'm hyped. I'm coming. I'm looking fly. I'm going into this office. I'm about to do it. And going into this office, I remember going into the office, there was the regular door that closed, and then when you went further in, there was like another door. It seemed like it was like a soundproof door. Like if you tried to shoot it, you couldn't even shoot the door down. Like I said, this was the landlord. This was his son, so it was still in my building. And so I'm in there, and so, he's showing me the different videos. He's showing me the videos of when we was dancing, and, now you're on like a big screen, like, oh, wow, look at us going. And so he started talking, and then he was like, all right, like, so show me. And I was like, all right, like, here's a tape, let's get it. And I remember, as I was dancing, then he came up real close. And, so I moved, dancing, still trying to, do what I was doing. And like he turned me around, and then he gave me a kiss, and I stepped back. I'm like, what are you doing? And he was like, no, this is what we have to do in order for you to be inside the show. And I remember him saying that this is not something that's going to hurt. I remember him like just holding me real, real close, real, real tight. And I remember it's like he held me in a way to where, like, I don't know how he got me down on the floor, but he got me on the floor, and I'm like trying to get him off, and I'm fighting him. And like I remember like he just inserted me, and it was like the pain was just ridiculous. And I'm still trying to fight, and he's still pumping, and I'm still trying to fight, and he's still pumping. And I remember when he finished, and I jumped up, and I ran to go put myself on, and he told me, he was like, you don't got to worry about getting pregnant because I can't have kids. And I ran upstairs, got in the shower, and I went, and I just started cutting. I was cutting. And I was just yelling, and foster parent came in there. She never asked. She just never asked, like, what's wrong? She just said, stop making all that noise in that bathroom. And I remember writing a letter to a woman who used to live in the building. Her and I was real close, and she moved back to Oklahoma. And I wrote this letter to her, and I told her what happened. And she called weeks later and she said, did you tell, your foster parent? I was like, no, I didn't tell her. Like, I can't tell her. And she was like, no, you got to tell her. Like, you have to tell her. I was like, I can't tell her because they're not going to listen to me. And so she said, I'm coming back down there. And she never got to come back down there. But my foster parent, months after that, ended up finding a letter. And she said, what is this? And by that time, I didn't even know what she was having. And she said, what is this? She said, you out there having sex? I was like, what? She's like, you out there having sex? I was like, no, I'm not having sex. I'm like, he raped me. He's like, he raped you? Yeah, he raped me, but I'm going to go take care of this right now. So she went downstairs, and I'm looking out the window. I'm waiting for the cops. I'm waiting for everything to come by. She came back upstairs, and she said, I took care of it. I'm like, well, where are the cops? Where's everybody at? She said, don't worry about it. I took care of it. She didn't take care of anything, but she never had to pay rent again. From that point on, I was in school, still I never told anybody. Went to end up meeting this guy, met this guy, and he, this is a guy who changed my life, who I fell in love with him. It didn't matter. Even with him, I didn't want to give myself to him, but when I gave myself to him, I said, it's on my terms. I don't care. Like, yeah, we can do it. Like, I said, okay, we can do it. And we were intimate, and I told him what happened. And he wanted to harm the person. I was like, no, you're going to get in trouble. I don't want you getting in trouble. Like, if you get in trouble, then I'm back left here with them again. And I was 17, almost finished high school, and ended up being in a relationship with this guy who I love so much with all my heart, who showed me that he was going to do something. He was going to protect me. And I said, no, don't do that because I want us to be together. And I remember my foster parent telling me, oh, you shouldn't be with him. He's no good. He's no this. He's no that. Saying all these negative things about him that I didn't see, but maybe she saw something, but I didn't see that. And I looked at her like, who are you to tell me not to be with this person when you get your tail beat every night? You don't even protect your kids. And so her and I used to always fight back and forth, not physically, but argue. And then I remember she ended up moving from Harlem to the Bronx. And he lived in the Bronx at the time, and then him and I would always see each other. And then I eventually moved from home, aged out of that system, to not move with him, but to just go from house to house with him. I found out a year later that he ended up having a girlfriend that he was with for years. And I ended up going away to school my first semester, found out I was pregnant. Came back, told him, because now I'm thinking I'm going to live the happy ever after life. He said, no, you need to get an abortion because you can't be pregnant because she's pregnant and she's keeping it. And I'm just like, oh. And so that would be the first of many abortions that I've had because of him that told me, you're going to get an abortion. The first time I had a kid, it was because he said, okay, you can have this kid now. He said, no, this is a boy, because all those other kids were girls. Don't know how he knew, don't know if it was true or not, but when I had my son, it was a boy. And had my first son, I think 24, 25, and then ended up having my second son a year later. And was in that relationship with him. We ended up getting married, was in that with him for 10 years, then moved on. Of course, with him, abuse, it was just abuse, domestic violence, heavy. But I think the final straw with him was when him and I got into a fight. And within that marriage, like, he never was loyal. He always cheated, different girls, all these different things. I still stayed, just loved him so much. And then, but it was my turn. I think it was 9 years. After 9 years, I ended up cheating on him with someone. And then he ended up catching me on the phone with the person. And him and I, that was like the worst fight. The landlord came upstairs from the downstairs, and she was like, you guys, this is enough. Like, that's it. The cops came. Of course, I didn't tell the cops anything. But I remember him locking me in a room. My mom lived with us. He locked me inside the room, and he was like, he was just beating me up. And he ended up choking me until I passed out. I woke up to like the kids like trying to open the door. And when he opened the door, like I was on the floor and the kids came to me, and my youngest son at the time, he had a fork and he was like trying to stab his leg for him to stop hitting me and to stop pulling on me. And he ended up leaving out the house. And that was the last time he ever came back to the house. And lo and behold, we had all these guns in the house and all this like shotguns, all these different things. And I got everything up, sold it, got everything out the house, and we were able to move from him. And so when you ask what led me to what I'm doing, my whole life, I've always had a passion for helping people. I always had a heart for people. As life went on, I always found myself in jobs of helping. Like I was just always helping. So whether it was domestic violence, welfare, substance abuse, all of those things. So I would say like my past, everything that I've journeyed in life, from drugs to alcohol, all of those things I've journeyed put me in a position where I am now to kind of give back and to begin to break generational cycles of abuse, because what we are pulled into from our childhood is what we begin to pour out into our adulthood. And when we pour it out not only to our spouses, not only to our partners, but we pour it out especially to our children, and then the cycle repeats itself. My trauma affected my children tremendously. My two older children, they were like the guinea pigs of my parenting. And I would say that they were raised in abuse, from me yelling at them, from me hitting them, from me cursing at them, doing everything that was taught to me. The only thing that I've never said to them was, what happens in this house stays in this house. You are free to say whatever you want to say. You are free to speak your mind. You are free to do those things. They were affected. Like I would sit and people would judge me and say, well, why are you sitting there watching Menace to Society with your small children? Like they were small, like 4 and 5. Like, why are you sitting here watching that with them? Or Boys in the Hood? And I would tell them, I said, because they need to know what these streets are about. And so as opposed to me just sitting here watching it, I'm going to now show them, now you see what this person did? Now that's not something that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do things like this, or you're supposed to watch out for this. You see the signs was there. And so I would be showing them things of the streets, though they would never be of the streets. It was something that was in me that was showed to them. And when I hear now from them, when I sit and you sit and talk to them, I have an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old. When you sit and talk to them now, they'll tell you like, "Mommy, you soft with these kids." You know, I have 5 kids and 3 is with their dad, and so with my husband now. And so we're all this blended family, but my 2 oldest will tell you, you're soft with the younger ones, because everything that you did to us, like you don't even do that to them. Like you don't hit them. You don't you yell at them, but it's not like how you did to us. Like you let them say this and you let them say that. And I felt really bad when they first started saying it to me. I felt bad. I don't feel bad anymore, but I felt bad because I didn't know any better. And I would share that, like I didn't know any better. I said, and when you know better, you do better. That's the goal. I said, so, how you were raised up, like, I'm sorry for that. Never wanted you to ever have to come to me and say these things to me. But life is about learning. And I say now, you know not to pour that into your children. You know not to harm or disrespect your children in any of those ways, because now you're seeing something different. And though it took me a while to get there, but you're now seeing something different. And now your siblings are able to see something that is different. But my husband, that was tough right there. I don't know. We still working on that. He's an awesome person. Like, why he chose to love me, God said I needed it. I needed his love. I needed that special love, because I was terrible to him in regards to like the verbal abuse and that mental abuse. Really bad when it came to him. Didn't trust him. Thought everything he was doing was just an act, like this wasn't gonna last, like all the loving and the goodness and the wanting to be with me, like you literally chose me. you're putting me first, you're putting the boys first, you're putting our family first, like you're doing all those things. And I would just treat you bad. Like, I don't care, curse you out, talk to you wrong, talk to you like you were less than, and tell you, go ahead and leave. Like, you wouldn't be doing nothing nobody else did. Like, so you can go ahead and you can go. I got this, I can do this. This right here, I know how to handle this. I can do this by myself, don't need you. And he was just like, Octavia, I'm not going anywhere. Like you say these things to me, but I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to do it by yourself. Allow me in, allow me to help you. And so I said a lot of those things in front of my children. And so it's just so amazing how my children still had the respect for him and the love for him. Because normally in situations like that, you have a blended family. Children are like, I'm not, like, I don't care, you're not my father. But they are the only father that he knows. And their biological father left their lives at 4 and 5. And so never came about, never tried to find them, never did any of those things. The last thing he ever said to them was, if you ever want to find me, you will come. If you ever want to see me, you can come and find me. And so that's how we ended it. That's how we left it until my son got older and he decided that he wanted to look for him. And when he did find him, I always said, I'm never going to help them. I'm not helping you find him. I don't care what you're talking about. But when my son came to me, my son would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning for like a week. And he said, like, I don't know, I keep having these dreams about my biological father and I just need to find him. And I had to pray heavy. Like, God, if this is what you want, then I'm going to do it. But you got to tell me this is what you want. And when God released me to do that, it took me 2 days, found him, gave him the number, and it was closure on my son's end. They may have talked for maybe 4 days, and he, I guess he expressed, how he felt, why he wasn't in his life, why he would beat me and do these things. And his biological father said, no, you're only hearing your mother's side. Mind you, they've never even heard my side. My son never even picked up my book. He would hear snippets of things from my family members and things like that. And so he would tell him, like, you can't even be a man and tell me. And so my son would show me the text messages that they had back and forth. And I told my son, I said, let me tell you something. I said, you was raised by a great man. And the way that you were raised, this language right here in this dialogue, that's not of you. I said, that's of your biological father, and this is what he wants. That's why he keep baiting you in. I said, so you show him that you are bigger than him. You show him that you are better than him. You show him that you were raised better than that by not going back and forth. I said, because at the end of the day, the Bible says, honor thy mother and father, and he's not worth your energy. And that was the last conversation he ever had with him, and he never had another conversation with him again. I was told I couldn't have any more children by a doctor, right? And because I had too many abortions. And the doctor told me that my insides was damaged. And so I was fine. I was okay with that. It didn't bother me. I knew I didn't want to have any more children. I had my 2. I was fine. And when I met my husband, we were dating, doing this courting thing. Never did that before, so that was new. And when we started getting really serious, I told him, I said, if you want children, like, I can't have any more children. He was like, what? Like, what you mean? Like, who told you that? Like, you young. I was like, yeah, I said I had too many abortions. And he was like, how many abortions did you have? I said, maybe about 17 to 20. He was like, what? I'm like, yeah. And he was like, so the doctor told you? I was like, the doctor told me. I was like, I'm going to make an appointment. You can go to the doctor with me. So, she can tell you the same thing. We went into the doctor's office, and, she's sitting there and her face is real sad. And I'm just like, whatever. And I said, well, can you share with him what you shared with me about children? Because we want to move forward with life, but I don't want him to be stagnated with me, knowing that he wants something more. And, so she went into her notes and she was reading the notes and she was explaining to him why and all these different things. And when we left out the door, we didn't even get to the car. He said, you can have kids. Like, I don't believe that. Like, God has the final say. And I was like, all right, well, if that's what you still want to be with me. That's your choice. I don't care. And as we continued to date and we continued to live, I ended up getting pregnant and was shocked and sad all at the same time. And it was just like, Like, what is going on? Like, what happened? I don't get it. He was like, I told you, God has a final say. I was like, this is just, and then 3 children later. So we started therapy because my husband always said to me, he said, no, you need therapy. For us to work, you need it. And I'm like, no. We need therapy for us to work. And so we went to therapy. And we went to therapy and it didn't last. And I tell everyone, like, therapy is like shopping. You have to find the right therapist for you. And we shopped. And we probably came close to finding one that was really good. But it wasn't that we needed it. It was really I needed it. And so when I kind of got that, I started seeking therapy, and I was going through a lot of different therapists. And one of the things for me is that every therapist that I had, like, we are very close friends today, very close. But it was like they got me to a point and that was it. And no one has really ever touched that surface of trauma. And so I'm in therapy today. I really have a good therapist today. And that is a really good thing because she touches that surface of trauma. She is what I need. And I tell everyone that you must understand what is it that you need. You must understand that you're not able to get through this on your own. You're not able to go through your barriers of life. For me, my umpteen years of living and going through all of this trauma, I can't expect for it to be over in 2 or 3 months. Like, it takes time. And so going through that process, my husband see a difference. And that's the great thing. Going through that process, he sees that, like, wow, like, I see that, you're doing your counting, you're doing your breathing. I see that you kind of stop for a second. I know your cues when you come into the house. Like, I know when you have the kids can't say anything, like, you have to go straight to the back and you got to kind of mellow out. So all those are the things that I've learned to do because of everything that's compounded on me throughout the day. And then I come home and then are triggered now by my own children because of my childhood. What made me decide to be a therapist? Again, just my life experience, wanting to give back, wanting people to see that your past doesn't define you, that we are redefining ourselves each and every day, and just wanting to be an African-American woman who has been through some ish, who has overcome the pain of her past, and who has began breaking those barriers and those generational cycles of abuse. And I think in the African-American community especially, we still hold on to what happens in this house stays in this house. We don't touch the past, and we begin to repeat the things that are taught to us. And so for me, I want to break that. I want to break the silence. I want to show people that you are like this at this moment because of your past. What would you change? What would you do different? What would you wish someone had said to you when you were a little girl or you were a little boy? What are you not giving your children? What are you giving your children that you didn't receive? A lot of times when clients come in, it's just a hug. Like, they didn't get hugs. That's tough. So because I didn't get a hug, I can't really hug my children. I remember my son said to me, I think my son was probably 15, maybe 16. And he said, I remember the last time that you gave me a hug, I was probably like 5. And that broke me. Because I'm like, what? Like, I'll give you a hug. Like, I always give you a hug. He was like, no. Like, you gave me a real hug. Like, I was 5. And I had to, like, really think. I had to bring this up in therapy. I had to talk about this. Like, what was the reason? So for me, being molested, at the age of 5, and then molested throughout the years, no one gave me a hug past that age. So it's something that I held on to. It's something that my body held on to. It's something called trauma transference syndrome. to where your body holds on to the pain of its past. And so subconsciously, I stopped giving my children hugs at the age of 5. Because at the age of 5, they were now to grow up. At the age of 5, they were now to live. And I never understood that until he brought it to my attention. I couldn't dissect it. I couldn't understand it until I was in therapy, and I had to come to that realization that my trauma stopped me from loving and from giving and from healing. And so now they can't stop me from giving them hugs. Now I'm just giving hugs out all the time. Like, it's just, if I walk in the house and just a hug, like, you just get a hug just because. But it's powerful of the things that our bodies hold on to, the trauma, and what we see, what we hear, what we feel, our bodies hold on to it. And because our bodies hold on to it, it projects it. So it's either going to accept all of the pain, all of the negative talk, all of the emotional abuse. Is going to accept it. Your body's going to accept it. You're going to live. You're going to eat onto it. And you're not going to think that anything is wrong with it, because your body is used to it. So your body is not telling you anything. Your body is not telling you fight or flight. Your body is telling you you're used to it. You deal with it. You move from it. And so because we're used to it, we deal with it, we move with it, that's how we repeat the cycle of it. And so when you ask about therapy and why I became a therapist, it's to break that. I don't want people feeling the pain that I felt, and then now you go and you grow old and you die with it. Or you say, oh, it's too late for me to change. It's never too late. It's never too late as long as you're willing and you're open and you can be receptive. We can make a difference. What made me write my first book, Leaked: Spilling Secrets of Trauma? It's the autobiography of my life. And I didn't know that I was going to write. I'm spiritual. God revealed to me to write. And I didn't tell anyone, because when you start saying God said this, people look at you strange. So I just kept it to myself. I remember going to my sister-in-law's church, and I've been there many of times. And I remember just allowing her bishop to prophesy over me. And I've never allowed that to happen before. But this particular night, I got up and allowed him to prophesy. And he said, what are you waiting for? Yahweh told you to write, and here you're not being obedient. And that was confirmation. I fell out on the floor. You would have thought it was a whole stage act. I fell out crying, all these different things. And that night I went home and I wrote my first book. In 3 months I was finished. It was published, everything. And I went and I started doing book signings. I started speaking. I started going into community centers. I started doing more in the light of the people. The following year, I wrote my second book called Revealed to Heal, Working from the Inside Out. And that's a self-help book. It's a self-help guide for self, not in replacement of therapy, because you still need therapy, but it's to get you to start thinking now about some things. It's for you to start thinking about your life, thinking about the direction of where you want your life to go and where your life was to where you are now. And so, Revealed to Heal stands for recognize and release each vicious episode attacking life to help every aspiration live. And I'm a firm believer that you have to recognize where you came from to understand where you are now, so you can push forward to where you want to be. And so in this book, it gives snippets of stories, but it also asks you questions about yourself. What do you recognize? What's the pain of your own past? It gives you a guide of prayer. It gives you songs that you can listen to, songs that lift me up inside of my own journey of life, inspirational gospel songs that gave me the key and the formula to be able to move forward. For those of you who are interested in learning more about my story, you can find my book located on Amazon.com. This is Leaked: Spilling Secrets of Trauma. You can also find Revealed to Heal, Working from the Inside Out, also on Amazon.com. We're also in Barnes & Nobles as well. For those of you out there who wants help, who's seeking therapy, one, I would say something really simple. If you have health insurance, call the number on the back of your card and let the representatives know that you want therapy. If you don't have insurance, you can also Google therapy in my area. If you you can also go to our website. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're self-pay, it doesn't matter where you are. It's www.reveal2healconsulting.org, and you can look us up and you can choose us. I would tell you to put yourself first. If you know that you have been through some things, if you know that you just may want to talk, choose you. That's a part of choosing you. Because in order to become the best version of you, you must choose you. And don't look at anything that you've been through as bad and or wrong, or you regret it, because it's just life journey, it's your life experiences. And so it's time for you to now walk out on faith, walk out on your purpose. It's time for you to level up because it's healing time.